I won't go through all the numbers for the radio audience. It did not faze Mahomes or Josh Allen whatsoever. So this is true. When you get a star quarterback, any receiver drama, move him out of the building. Demanding a contract a year early, move him out of the building. Even Brock Purdy, and he's not Mahomes or Allen, even Brock Purdy, he doesn't have Debo, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle. Juwan Jennings, I'm fine. It makes me wonder if San Francisco made a mistake going with Brandon Ayuk, because once Kittle, Debo, Christian, and Jennings are all playing together, why'd you pay $27 large a year, whatever you paid? I'm just going to remind you, Aaron Rodgers won Super Bowl. He didn't have a superstar receiver. Patrick Mahomes' last two didn't have a superstar receiver. The best receiver Tom Brady ever had easily was Randy Moss. No trophies. Drew Brees won Super Bowl. Marquise Colston. He had a receiver much better later in his career. Couldn't get to the Super Bowl. Eli Manning's Super Bowl. One of them, it was Mario Manningham, and in the other one, the biggest catch was by David Tyree. I am not saying receivers don't have value. I want a dude, but he can't be a diva. If the quarterback is special. Now, if you have Tua, Tyreek Hill is necessary. If you have Dak, CeeDee Lamb is necessary. If you have, I love Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins, but Justin Jefferson feels necessary. But I'm looking at San Francisco with Brandon Ayuk, and Brock Purdy looks pretty damn good. And they've got McCaffrey and Shanahan and Debo and Kittle and Jennings, and they just drafted 2 receivers. I'm just saying, Stephon Diggs isn't even in Buffalo still, and he doesn't even live there. They're still asking Josh Allen about it. Like, the one position college is furnishing in the NFL at an accelerated rate is receiver. And the one position where you get the most noise in the NFL, look at the offseason of San Francisco and Cincinnati and Dallas. They've all been a little disappointing. I know, Cowboy fans, you loved that win last night. All been a little disappointing. Just something to point out. If you are in an industry and you have a position and you're making a lot of noise, and that position is one that college graduates are coming into your industry at an accelerated rate, you may want to chill out a little bit. You may want to be more of a team guy, not go scrub your social media because things aren't working out the way you planned. But I'm looking at all these wide receivers. I'm looking at this kid from Florida State Buffalo has. That dude is a baller. I'm looking at Malik Neighbors. That guy's a top 10 receiver now. When's the last time you got a left tackle and you're like, within 3 games, you're like, yeah, it's a top 3 left tackle. Even Aiden Hutchinson, the kid from Detroit, the pass rusher, it took a year. I covered Warren Sapp. It took a year. Malik Neighbors is great today. It's just the way it works. That is the position. So it's very interesting. This offseason, we spent so much time talking about one position. You know, they still had a year on a contract, one position making noise. And I'm looking around this league and I'm thinking, I'm looking at Allen, I'm looking at Mahomes, zero impact. And I like Stephon Diggs. I liked Randy Moss. T.O. was just too much for me to deal with. But I understand wanting the ball. Dak Prescott did just fine without Dez. Didn't win more or less. Did just fine. Be very, very careful. You're seeing now, you're seeing quarterback matters more than ever. If the quarterback has a good coach, I'm just not going industry. My noisiest employee, I've got to see a connection to W's. Right? Or revenue. Well, Buffalo's selling out every game regardless of who's wide receiver. In any business, if you're the noisiest employee, you have to be impossible to replace or driving wins in revenue. No star receiver in this league is driving wins, revenue, and merchandise sales. That's not the way it works. So I can deal with noisy. I can deal, like Charles Barkley got real noisy during that contract thing. Barkley's driving ratings and revenue. I can deal with that. I can deal with drama, But you got to be driving stuff. Can't be in the passenger seat. If you're driving ratings, you're driving revenue, you're driving wins, you're driving merchandise, I can take the noise. I can take the noise. Just saying, there's so many great star receivers coming into the NFL. Be very careful, star receiver guy, about getting loud in the offseason. Because Josh Allen and Buffalo's offense looks good to me. It looks better than it did last year. And they're hoisting trophies in Kansas City last 2 years without Tyreek Hill, who's a hell of a player. But he's much more necessary in Miami than he is in Kansas City. J-Mac with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Let's get started with Kellen Moore. Colin, the Philadelphia offensive coordinator, was brought in to fix Jalen Hurts after a rough last year. It's working so far. Eagles second in total yards per game. The offense has looked very sharp, although they didn't score enough points against the Saints. But they're 2-1, and just a few weeks into the season, Nick Sirianni said he's playing a role some of us can relate to: backseat driver.
I'm letting Kellen run drive the car. And just like my wife will say, to me, hey, make sure you take it right here or left here. And she's giving me directions. I'm same thing in these scenarios. It's just chiming in when I have something to chime in.
Well, he's been at his best when he lets his coordinator, if the coordinator's competent, call the play. That's okay. They call them walk-around coaches. Jimmy Johnson let his coordinators make calls. Pete Carroll was a walk-around coach. Belichick, to a large degree, walked around, monitor his coaches. Occasionally, he had to snip at Josh McDaniels once a game, like, Josh, do this, do that. But in the end, I don't have a problem at all with Nick saying, I'm going to let my guys drive the car. I prefer my coach, like Kyle Shanahan's calling the plays. He's brilliant. I would prefer that's not the case.
Well, for now, that's fine. If all of a sudden they're sputtering at 6-6, and we know Sirianni's on the hot seat, he's not going down letting Kellen Moore call the plays. You know that's going to happen. Sirianni, if he's fighting for his job, right? He's got to take over, no? Now, it's early in the season, but...
No, they just... Let me say this again. God, you guys... Philadelphia just went to the hottest team in the league, New Orleans, and beat them.
So what? We're on to week 4.
No, but without A.J. Brown, their best player.
So they're without A.J. Brown this week. I'm looking at the practice report right now.
Devontae Smith.
No Lane Johnson. Devontae Smith.
And they're going to go to Tampa and eat.
Ooh. Okay.
That may show up in the Blazing Five.
Oh, it may show up.
Philadelphia's going to Tampa, and they're going to eat. So, guys...
Might show up in headlines as well. Ooh, a little head-to-head action, huh? Wow. So you're really fine with, hey, we beat the Saints. It's all good in the hood. Let's just let Kellen Moore keep calling his plays.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just telling you, if you look at the history, this is not the NBA or college basketball. Nick Saban controlled virtually everything. Lane Kiffin's calling plays. I get it. In the NFL, most of the great coaches are not necessarily on the headset. They may put it on in crisis, but they're not on the headset.
Right, but for now, when your job's on the line and they're trying to run you out of town, you better get on the headset and save your job, no? Or do you just let...
They just beat the Saints. And now they're going to get back in the plane, fly down there. Let me tell you, they'll be drinking Mai Tais 20 minutes after that game with the Bucks.
Real? The wind and rain from Hurricane Helene may be too bad. That field could be really ugly.
Okay. Well, Devontae and A.J. Brown may not play. So you're telling me it's going to be a run game with Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts?
35 carries for Saquon.
I'm saying. So I looked up the weather. My take is, well, the weather would benefit Philadelphia because I got Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. So quarterback, running back, I got better players, especially running the ball in crappy weather. So the weather plays into Philadelphia.
Okay.
If you got a 25-mile-an-hour wind, you're not throwing deep balls to A.J. Brown anyway. So the weather even helps Philadelphia. What you don't want to do is go down to Miami as a northern team in like September and it's 98 and humid. But going down there when it's wet and windy and you have a Saquon Barkley, I'm good with that.
All right. Okay. So let's go to the second story. Brandon Ayuk. Boy, he's off to a rough start. Chirpy offseason. Is the highest paid receiver on the team, and he's doing nothing so far for San Francisco. Well, 49ers legend Steve Young, who's got something to say all the time, says missing all that preseason time is the reason Brandon Ayuk is struggling. Here he is.
Brandon needs to look it in the eye. Like, I'm sure there's things, maybe the plays haven't been called for him as much. Maybe there's some things, odd things that happen on certain downs where he wasn't the primary when they thought he would be. But in the end, the full measure of what's happened, Brandon needs to own it. Like, I've come back, I missed camp, and now I'm not. That's not happening. So I have to take that on myself. There's no blame other than yourself. Own it.
That's right. He's totally right.
Niners screwed this up.
Well,
I should have traded him way back before the draft.
I will say they draft. So